All right, 112, folks. Let's talk a little bit more about Chapter 31 of Unit 7. I was mentioning Mikhail Gorbachev and the idea of the solidarity movement that's happening. I mean, he is the Russian premier. He is in charge. He is the head of the party at this particular point. When this blows up, because it's going to blow up in a couple of different places, but the biggest place is going to be Poland with the solidarity movement. What that's going to do is it's going to push them so hard that it's going to result in the idea of almost a democratic market economy taking over in the Soviet Union. It's going to result in the breakdown of the Soviet Union. What he's going to do is develop a policy called Glasnost. Glasnost. And Glasnost is going to be about, number one, being truthful, about outreaching, about trying to make friends with the West, trying to trade with the West, trying to be a bit more democratic and change the system. And in changing this system, creating this market economy, you see the rise of Boris Yeltsin. You're going to see the rise of a couple of the folks like Vladimir Putin coming at this point as well. What's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of people that are thrilled about this in Russia and beyond. There's going to be a lot of people who are not thrilled about this in Russia and beyond. I think it's interesting because Gorbachev is going to parley with Reagan. He's going to try to make friends with Reagan. We're going to try to create some changes with Reagan. And then what he'll do is he'll go on vacation. Folks, if you know nothing about history, if you are a Russian premier, if you are a Russian diplomat, whatever you want to say, don't go on vacation, because while he's on vacation, they decide that he has died. They decide that he has resigned. They decide that they're going to replace him. There is a coup. And with the coup, you're going to see the rise of Boris Yeltsin, and you're going to see the rise of Vladimir Putin, who are going to rescue him and block the coup and guarantee that they indeed are going to go more Western, more democratic. You're going to see the breakdown of the USSR into the state of Russia, into a couple other things along the way, but it's going to be the breakdown of the whole Soviet bloc. This is important because this is going on while we're struggling with Iran. The other thing that's happening is going to be happening in China. You're going to see the rise of Deng Xiaoping. You're going to see Tiananmen Square because you're seeing the breakdown of communism, because you're seeing the growth of this democratic movement. It's going to hit China as well, and you're going to have some university students. Folks, the most troublemaking group ever existed is university students. Yes, I'm talking to you. I thought it was interesting that the head of the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, said that the birth of communism, the birth of liberalism, the birth of all that happened on college campuses. They're among the most dangerous places that exist. Anytime you teach people free thinking might be a good idea, yeah, you're going to have problems, but that's part of the process of learning. I'm good with problems. What will happen is these college students will raise up and they will stage a rebellion. They're going to go ahead and take over Tiananmen Square. Tiananmen Square is not a sacred place because there are no sacred places, because it's against communist policy, but it is a main square in the capital at this particular point, and they're going to put on a public display. This public display is going to hit the world news. This public display is going to demand democracy. It's going to demand the overthrow of communism. It's going to demand a free market economy. It's going to demand a lot of liberal ideals because it's a struggle for this democratic ideal. Well, China is going to put up with it. China is going to put up with it. China is going to put up with it. And China will go, bam! And they will crush it. They will crush it militarily. I mean, literally tanks. They will crush it with weapons. They will crush it in such a public display. This is where we get the idea of the Tiananmen Square massacre, because what they're going to do is they're going to say, you know what? We're tired of this crap. We're tired of this public display. We're tired of being embarrassed. And what they'll do is they will shut this down with force. Many of the people will be killed. Many of the people will disappear. Many of the people will be locked in camps for re-education purposes. China has a policy. The policy was invented by Mao, and the idea is to punish you for 10 generations. So if you screw up now, if you go against the government now, if you upset the communist government now, they're going to punish you. and your children, and your grandchildren, and your great grandchildren, and your great great grandchildren, and your great 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 grandchildren. The idea being is they're going to make you pay for several lifetimes. So you don't want to screw up. The Tiananmen Massacre doesn't result in democracy. It doesn't result in the changes that we see in the Soviet Union and Russia. But it is important because it is part of that quake against communism. The other thing that comes up that's hugely important is OPEC. One of the things you're seeing right now, I'm pretty old, folks. I'm pretty old. Driving down the road the other day, yes, I was on official business at that particular point because I would not be out driving around otherwise during this point in time. I looked up at the gas station and noticed that the gas was on sale for $1.50. $1.50. It has not been $1.50 in quite a few years. But the reason that's important is one of the things that comes up in this chapter is OPEC. OPEC is a group. That's an acronym for Organization of Petroleum Exporting Companies. They're the ones in the Middle East and a couple of other places that have unified together to guarantee and to maintain the supply of oil and therefore other products that come from that. But they're also working as a conglomerate. They're also working as a group to control the price of oil. Back when I was much younger, oil used to be less than, well, it is now, but gas was less than $1 a gallon. It's substantially more than that now, and $1.50 a gallon, that's pretty amazing at this particular point in time. But this is when we're starting to look at the oil crisis. This is when we're starting to look at the energy crunches along the way. This is when we're starting to look at a huge shift in things. What else happens? Well, what will happen is Reagan is going to invent something called Reaganomics. He's going to work on something called Trickle-Down Economics. The idea being is he's going to give tax cuts to the wealthy people in such a way that he says, listen, if we go ahead and don't tax the wealthy people, they have more money in their pockets and bank accounts, and therefore they will spend that money. And in spending that money, they're going to go ahead and buy things that are going to force those middle class and lower class people to go ahead and work. And if they're working, we'll be putting money in their pockets. They'll have money to spend. And so therefore, by giving tax cuts to the rich, it will employ the less than rich, and the economy will be great. That's a great idea, but the rich people don't get rich by spending money. They get rich by keeping their money. So trickle-down economics, which is the same as Reagan economics, or supply-side economics, doesn't work. What we do get is we get enough of what looks like a good economy to get his vice president, George Bush, H.W., Herbert Walker, George Herbert Walker Bush, is going to be elected, and he is he's going to have things blow up on him that nobody expected. All right, this is when we start to look at some things happening in such a way that, well, he's going to end up getting involved in the first Persian Gulf War. He is going to get involved in the Persian Gulf War in such a way that he is going to rescue oil, that he's going to rescue some of our friends who are being persecuted by a strong man that we actually put in office in Libya via the CIA. This Persian Gulf War, this first one, and the idea is we're going to be fighting against some evil actionaries, and these evil actionaries are going to lead to other things that happen along the way. But this is Persian Gulf War 1. We win, kind of. But then that's the very beginning of things, because the other thing that's happening is we're going to start to look at the birth of Osama bin Laden. So what I want to do is leave this off here, and then I will go ahead and pick up from there.